Welcome to Ankara. All 32 member states have gathered at the Turkish presidential complex for the 2026 NATO summit. But the leaders arriving here are navigating a structural crisis of alliance architecture. The tension is driven by Washington. The Trump administration is actively rolling back the unconditional security umbrella that has covered Europe since 1945. This chart details estimated NATO defense expenditures. The green line marks the historical 2% guideline, but now Washington demands 5% by 2035. For nations like Poland, 3.5% will fund core military capability, and 1.5% covers critical infrastructure and cyber resilience. This 5% mandate shifts the financial burden of defense directly onto European taxpayers. Survival no longer comes from an American promise. It requires member states to purchase the specific hardware needed to sustain their own defense. We are already seeing the physical retraction of American air and naval power. The Pentagon is steadily withdrawing fighter jets, destroyers, and submarines from Europe. Alongside this drawdown, the U.S. Department of Defense has initiated a 6-month force posture review. This is an active audit to see exactly which European nations will step up to backfill these security gaps. In response, European allies are scrambling to compensate, injecting $90 billion into their defense budgets in a single year. Washington's strategy of burden shifting has moved from political rhetoric to an active physical restructuring of the global military balance. To the south, the alliance is managing a deep transatlantic fracture caused by the recent U.S. and Israeli war against Iran. Washington remains highly frustrated with European members who refuse to grant airspace, basing rights, or political support during the conflict. The fallout continues to paralyze regional economics. Despite a fragile ceasefire, the Strait of Hormuz remains contested, making transit dangerous for global energy shipping. This document details Turkey's response. While Ankara refused to join U.S. strikes, 4 Iranian missiles were intercepted over Turkish airspace using NATO's defense chain. Specifically, Kuragic radar and Incirlik personnel fed critical tracking data to interceptors, neutralizing the threats and preventing broader regional escalation. The Iran conflict proved that maintaining a sovereign, autonomous strategy and relying on NATO's collective defense architecture are mutually required. Turkey used both to hold the line. Meanwhile, on the eastern flank, the grinding war in Ukraine continues to test the alliance's material endurance. To replace departing American air cover, Zelensky is using the summit to secure immediate delivery commitments for high-end conventional hardware, specifically Patriot missile defense systems. This animated diagram breaks down the new €70 billion military assistance package for Kyiv. Notice how a €30 billion EU loan carve-out is specifically designed to fill the void left by reduced U.S. stockpile donations. At the summit's Parallel Defense Industry Forum, leaders are racing to integrate artificial intelligence, automated technologies, and autonomous drones to offset the loss of American troop mass. Sustaining Ukraine requires the European defense industrial base to scale up its own production lines and become self-sufficient. Beyond the public declarations of alliance unity, the actual security architecture is being hammered out in bilateral deals on the sidelines of the summit. Washington and Ankara are negotiating a major reconciliation, with the U.S. moving to lift sanctions and clear the way for Turkey's return to the F-35 fighter jet program. Other member states are making their own independent power plays. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney used his time in Ankara to direct free trade negotiations with Turkey, while securing a submarine fleet deal with a German and Norwegian consortium. These bilateral maneuvers show member states actively hedging their bets. Rather than relying entirely on Washington, they are building decentralized, overlapping security networks. The long-standing reliance on U.S.-subsidized protection has been replaced by a strictly conditional arrangement. To survive, the alliance must now independently manage a high-tech land war in the east while navigating geopolitical instability in the south. In Ankara, these 32 nations have moved toward a model where Europe takes primary responsibility for its own conventional defense. It is a more transactional network, one defined by spending targets and proven capabilities.